Hey everyone, we have a bunch of interesting news surrounding the Batman to talk about today, as well as some interesting rumors about the casting that have been coming out lately. Then at the end of the video, I'll be talking about what this means for the future of the DCEU. Now before we begin, if you like Comic Island, be sure to subscribe to our channel and check out our Patreon page, the link to which you can find in the video description below. So there's been a lot of talk about the next Batman solo movie, simply entitled The Batman. Filming is due to begin in January 2020, so now is a big time for all the casting to be announced as Warner Brothers gets their ducks in a row before they begin production. We already know that Matt Reeves will be directing, and Robert Pattinson will be taking over the role of Batman. But the big news of the moment is that Zoe Kravitz has been announced as the new Selina Kyle, also known as Catwoman. Additionally, it is rumored that Jonah Hill is in talks to play the Riddler, while Jeffrey Wright is potentially going to play James Gordon. There's a lot of other details about this movie floating around too. Matt Reeves has said he wants to feature an entire roster of Batman villains in the movie. He also says he wants to focus more on Batman as a detective, and more of the noir themes that have been used with the character in the comics over the years. The Batman as a title and the appearance of Robert Pattinson also both suggest this movie will be focusing on Batman's earlier days in his career as a superhero. Meanwhile, DC has been walking away from the DCEU brand and focusing less on the continuity between their movies. So it is unclear if this is going to be a movie taking place back in time in the early days of the DCEU Batman, or as a modern movie with a new Batman largely unrelated to the Ben Affleck version most recently seen in theaters. It also makes it very unlikely Jeremy Irons will return as Alfred, although that still hasn't been confirmed one way or another. We've gotten no announcement about the identity of Alfred or who he might be in The Batman. I have a lot of thoughts about all of this, but most of them are pretty optimistic and positive. The weirdest bit of news is the rumor that Jonah Hill might be the Riddler. The personality of this villain doesn't seem to blend well with Jonah Hill's general vibe, and I've always kind of pictured the Riddler as being tall and lanky, though Jonah Hill has surprised me in other roles before, so not necessarily against the idea either. I just have a really hard time picturing it, and it reminds me of the same sort of casting thought process that seemed to go into making Jim Carrey as the Riddler over 2 decades ago now. To be honest, I don't think it's always the best idea to pick someone generally known for comedy to be the Riddler. I understand the instinct, but a good rendition of the Riddler's character is a lot more troubled and much less goofy than I think people realize. Now to be fair, all of this is a rumor, and Jonah Hill has done good dramatic work in the past, so maybe that's why he's being considered to begin with. Still, out of all of the casting announcements and rumors, this is the one I am least excited about and most skeptical. On the other hand, Jeffrey Wright as James Gordon is such a good idea that picking pretty much anyone else is going to feel inferior in comparison. Between Wright's time on Westworld to his work in the James Bond franchise, it is just so easy to picture Wright excelling in this role beyond my wildest dreams. Just like how he is my favorite Felix Leiter of all time, he could easily become my all-time favorite James Gordon. Though this hasn't been confirmed, this bit of casting rumor is my favorite idea so far. It just seems like Jeffrey Wright is so perfect for this role. He carries a little bit of authority around him that you would expect out of a police commissioner, but also has that sort of edge and maverick attitude of someone who might be willing to work with a vigilante dressed as a bat. I can very easily picture Jeffrey Wright sitting on a rooftop lighting the bat signal, which is really the one true test of whether or not a person would make for a good Jim Gordon. As for the other 2 actors actually confirmed, I'm pretty optimistic about Zoe Kravitz. She's done some great work before, notably a few roles in superhero movies. She already was the voice of Catwoman in the Lego Batman movie, but Kravitz also voiced Mary Jane Watson in the Spider-Verse movie, and even had a relatively small role in X-Men First Class. I think Kravitz will make an excellent Catwoman, and given what we've heard the Batman might be about, I think her role in the movie could be a very strong one, not just as a typical Batman villain, but also as his partner, as she's been increasingly in the comics. There's a lot of room for Catwoman's character to be explored in ways that haven't been done before in live action. Given that this movie is supposed to have a lot of villains in it, Catwoman could have a very unique role distinct from all the other Batman villains, and thus freeing up the Batman to mostly focus on one villain with a bunch of others in the background. If so, then it's very possible we are looking at an adaptation of not Batman Year 1, but Batman Year 0, a more recent story by Scott Snyder with a lot of potential to it. As for the last little bit of casting that we know about, a lot has been said by others about Robert Pattinson being Batman, and I think too much of those opinions are informed by his role in Twilight. I've said it before, but I still maintain Pattinson would make for a much better Terry McGinnis as opposed to a Bruce Wayne, but I'm still pretty excited either way. I can't say there is some movie or role I could point to and reassure you all that there is some clear evidence in Pattinson's career that guarantees he's going to be a great Batman, but that role doesn't exist. Nevertheless, I think there's real potential here, and more importantly than anything, it seems like the director and casting people saw something in Pattinson that will make him a good Batman. I already am convinced he could make for an excellent Bruce Wayne, and a key part of Pattinson's casting was more about what he looks like in the Batman suit, and that seemed to go well enough that they were willing to cast him. That's the bit that we don't know about, but the people in charge of this movie have seen and liked enough to decide to cast him as their lead role in the movie. And that brings us to the most important point when considering what the Batman might be like: Matt Reeves. Because this director is by far the biggest reason I'm excited about this movie, and what it really comes down to is his work on Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and Rise of the Planet of the Apes, both of which are some of the best movies to come out of this decade.
Okay, we're going.
Take your stinking paw off me, you damn dirty ape!
These Planet of the Apes movies are so good that I strongly feel if Matt Reeves is given enough creative control over this movie, he's going to make the Batman fantastic. A good director matters so much in determining whether or not I'd be excited about a lot of the news surrounding this film. Because we have a good director, it means we're more likely to get a great performance out of this cast, making me much more confident about Pattinson and even Kravitz, since even great actors often don't look good in the hands of a bad director. It also lets me look past all the talk of a dark Batman movie focusing on noir themes for all that stuff, since while I'm kind of sick of grimdark Batman as much as everyone else seems to be these days, I believe Matt Reeves will be able to find the right tone between a dark and realistic take on Batman against the fun and original purpose of the character. All that talk of featuring a ton of villains fits in with what I'm saying here. A super serious Batman film couldn't feature an entire rogues gallery of villains, but a fun Batman movie with a noir aesthetic could. You can have a Batman movie that looks dark and feels dark, but is still a fun, enjoyable experience. Just look at the Batman animated series that came out a few decades ago now. That hit the mark perfectly for an entire TV series, so it's not difficult for me to believe that a competent person like Matt Reeves could do the same. The last point of contention, and really this only works in the movie's favor, is the stuff concerning the DCEU. It feels like the brand name is all but dead, but hopefully crossovers and other fun stuff along those lines aren't gone entirely. This is a new Batman, and there is no good way to fit that into the DCEU without it being weird or confusing. It's hard to imagine that this new Batman movie is going to feature any DCEU characters or crossovers at all. While personally I'm all for crossover stuff in general and think it can lead to a good experience when the build-up is done correctly, given that Warner Brothers ordered the release of these movies in such a weird and backwards way, I don't think much could be done about this anyways, and it would be better just to start all over with Batman. If this movie does well and is successful enough, they can build up crossovers and cool ideas from there. The best part of all of this, though, is that it means Matt Reeves effectively should have the freedom to do whatever he wants in the Batman without, hopefully, too much studio interference. It's pretty clear that the studio was as much a problem for the DCEU as anything else, so Warner Brothers stepping away from the big franchise-building stuff could very much benefit the individual movies, especially something like The Batman. All told, we have the makings of an excellent Batman film in the works. And I think we're starting to get due for it as well. The Nolan movies are really starting to show their age in a way I didn't think was possible, but I find I'm becoming less enthusiastic about them as time goes on. The fact that Nolan has been consulting on the Batman, to me, is not actually a point in favor of the movie. Things have changed, and I don't believe Nolan has the right vision for what Batman should be anymore. Hopefully Matt Reeves does, as I'm ready for a new favorite Batman film, and with luck, that's what we'll get in June of 2021. Yeah, this movie is still a long ways away, especially given that it was first announced all the way back in 2015. But in the meantime, we'll have a much better idea of what this movie is going to be like as they start filming in January of 2020. While that happens, we're bound to get bits of news and little bits of images, as well as the promotional stuff that will finally start to surface once filming is complete. So let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Are you excited, annoyed, apathetic? I'm curious what everyone has to say. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.